what you have to say about how we can clarify our brand and what we need to know about our customers to create a great experience. Take it away.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. As they had mentioned, my name is Carrie Roberts. I'm the owner of Branding Connection, and I help companies with their branding and marketing. So we are going to be talking today about, as he just said, how to clarify your brand and why you need to know your customer to create a great user experience for a chatbot or voice assistant. Now, as we're going through, if you want to comment in the chat or ask questions, you are definitely more than welcome. And so we'll begin. We have the team is helping me with my slides, so we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. And I want to start with this idea about technology. I'm sure you heard today, as well as at many other events or other speakers, that technology is moving really fast. There are things that are here, there are things that are coming. And as you're listening to these thought leaders, you're going to have one of two feelings. One of them being you're excited too. You want to get on that train. You want to be a part of it. You want to get in on the action. And then the other part might be that you feel a little bit anxious about it. You know, how do I keep up with everything? How do I make sure that my company is not left behind? And both of those feelings are definitely normal and very common, I think, for many of us. And so one of the things that I want to talk about is when we're thinking about technology as a whole, not just chatbots or voice, we're really thinking about how does it help human beings? Because at the end of the day, if it is not helping human beings be better, be happier, be more efficient, make things easier, then is it really of value? So I really talk about the human connection, and I'm going to go to the next slide, please. Perfect. The team is on it. I love it. So really what's important here is thinking about how do we create a connection with a human being? These pictures are with myself and some people in the voice space. Some of them you may know prior to COVID, obviously. And so we're really thinking about, okay, how do I make this more human? How do I help people be more efficient? How do I make sure that I'm providing value to the people that I'm working with? Now, as we go through, we want to be thinking about our brand first and then our user second. So I want to go to the next slide. And what I want you to think about is, first off, what is a brand? Before we get into how do we define it, I think it's important to talk about what it is. And in its simplest terms, brand is a feeling. It's a feeling that your user or your client gets when they interact with your service, your product, your company, the people at your company, and whether or not you choose to create a brand, somebody has a feeling about you already. So it's really important that we clarify what that feeling is we want for people to have. And I want to give a couple examples here and then kind of ask you to think about this in your own life as well. So the first one on the left-hand side is Adidas, which is a well-known fashion athletic brand, I would say. And when I was in high school, I am a dancer. And I remember at the time, Adidas was putting out a ton of information about, you know, all these ads and all these marketing with hip hop dancers wearing their stuff. They had it in print ads. They had it in commercials. You started seeing it in music videos. You started seeing it at events. And I remember watching and being like, I want to be a part of that. I identify as a dancer, as a hip hop dancer specifically. I want to wear that because it makes me feel a part of the community. It makes me feel cool. And it's actually why I bought the product in the past. It's why I buy it now. So that brand gave me a very specific feeling that made me want to interact with them. The second one on the right-hand side is, of course, Apple computers. And for me personally, when I was young, our school had Apple computers, which was very rare at that time. And my family used them. And so I kind of grew up with them all the time. And, you know, for me, this wasn't their intention, but it did create a sense of tradition and family because I had used it before. But one of the things that they did do with their brand back then and today was that they really marketed their Apple products to creatives. I mean, even in that image you see on the screen there, you know, that's something that's very creative, very artistic. And they really said, you know, if you are a designer, if you are a videographer, if you're an audio person, if you're doing anything creative, Apple is the computer that you want. And so again, seeing these ads and seeing these people they would have, I identified with that feeling. Well, I'm a creative. I want to feel like I have the best product for that. And so that's why I purchased and still purchase these products. It's not to say that other ones are bad. It's just saying, what is the feeling I have? So when we think about brand, I want you to take a moment and think about what type of car do you have, or what type of clothes you wear, what computer you use. We're talking about voice today. Do you prefer Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant? And really think about why. What is the feeling that it gives you when you interact or use their products or services? So if you want to put that in the chat and kind of share some of those, that would be great. And so now that we understand what brand is, we're going to get into how do we clarify it and why is that important. So we're going to go to the next slide, please. Killing it on the team. Thank you so much. So why do we need to clarify our brand for chatbots and voice? As I said earlier, technology is moving really fast and we really need to slow down. We really need to think about how is this showcasing who my company is and creating a great user experience. How do I do that? How do I create a strategy? Instead of going into development right away, we really want to focus on this part first. So I encourage you to do this exercise with me. If you have a pen and paper, you want to do it on your computer or on your phone, I would definitely do that. I think that really helps. So the first thing we're going to do is, what are 3 words that describe your brand? Now, if you are a solo entrepreneur, you are your brand. If you are a startup, if you are a small or large business, there is a brand. Now, your company may already have done this. So one of the things that I suggest is to make sure that everybody is on board and can identify these. If they can't, then that's something you all want to be talking about on your team. So I want you to write down, what are the first 3 words that come to mind when you describe your brand? So it could be about the type of work you put out. It could be about the values you have. So some examples could be innovative, kind, speed, quality, beauty, design. What are those 3 words? And again, if you want to put that in the chat, that'd be great for kind of some of us to see, that really describe your brand. Now, there might be a bunch of different ones, but 3 is really what we want to stick with, because everything that you do, that you put out, needs to go back to these 3 things. So the second one here, I just want to go through, just making sure. Okay. The second one here is, what is your brand persona? Now, a brand persona can be a person, it can be an animal, or it can be an object. So I want to give you some examples before you kind of write this down. In the United States, our insurance companies are really good at this. So we have Progressive Insurance. They use a person, and theirs is Flo, F-L-O. She is a female. She's kind of quirky, and she is their brand persona. She is in everything that they do. She's in, when you look online, in their interactive stuff, it's the same. If you look at another U.S. insurance company, Geico, theirs currently is a gecko, which is an animal, reptile, and it actually has a British accent. So it has a very specific thing that they chose to go with. And same thing, you see it across their commercials, you see it online, you see it in the way you interact with things. One that we probably all know that's international is Microsoft many years ago had Clippy. And so if you went onto your Microsoft computer and you used a Word document, you would see this kind of paper clip, and it would have eyes, and it would help you with everything you needed. That is a brand persona. So I want you to write down, first of all, would you be a person, an animal, or an object? And what would that persona act like? What would they look like? How would they talk? All of those things. What do they value? This is a process that, again, if you're part of a large team, everyone's going to need to be on board. So I do say you're going to have to continue talking about this later on. But today, just kind of write those things that come to mind first and really think about how that works. Mohammed said quality is very important. Yes, I agree. Quality first, quantity second is what I say all the time. The third one is about how does your brand speak or write? Now, why is this important with chatbots and voice? When you are creating a chatbot, it's very similar to a text conversation that you would have with a friend. When you're doing a voice assistant or a skill or an app, it's very similar to talking on the phone with someone. So it's important to be thinking about, how do I speak? How does my brand speak? So an example would be, if I owned a skateboard company, I might be using skateboard lingo, right? I might be using words that only skateboarders would know, because that would be my clientele. That would really showcase my brand. If I have a company that is tailored toward kids, well, then the way that I speak and write better be very simple, very short sentences, very easy to understand words, because that's who would be interacting with my skill, most likely a skill, probably if it's a kid type of thing. So I want you to write down, how does your brand speak or write? Again, just some notes here to really be thinking about it. Now, this whole thing is the first step. So again, if your company has done it, you want to make sure, is everyone on the same page? Do we agree? Has our brand changed at all? And so we want to go through, and this is really where I would include your branding and marketing team. This is where a conversational designer is key, where that might be somebody you want to hire. This is a very creative role, right? Because before you go into production and development, we've really got to understand who's going to be talking on the other side. Even though it's an AI, there has to be this kind of human quality, because otherwise it's not going to be a great experience. So these three things we really want to be thinking about from our brand. Next slide, please. So the next thing, I hope you're all still with me taking notes. The next thing here is about, how do we create a great user experience, right? I said earlier, we want to be thinking more human. Even though we're in technology, we want to be thinking more human. And at the end of the day, we want to be saying, how can I help my customer or my potential customer? What do they need? What do they want? I don't want to just create something to create something. How can I be of service? So the first thing here, again, I want you to write some notes, is what are the top 3 questions that you get asked all the time? Now, you're going to focus on one of 2 areas. You're either going to focus on your current customer or your potential customer. So your current customer might fall under customer service. Your potential customer might fall under marketing and sales. It's pretty common. So what are the top 3 questions you get asked all the time? And these should be pretty easy if you've been with the company for a while or you've owned your company for a while. You probably repeat yourself a million times. What are those 3 questions? I want you to write them down. Maybe it's very simply, what are your services that you offer? Or what is the most common thing you get asked when people have a problem? We really want to write those 3 things down. This is a really great place to start. Then we want to go into, how am I currently answering those questions? How are currently either my customer or my potential customer getting answers to those questions? Is it the most efficient way? So this is something I talk about a lot with technology, and especially with chatbots and voice. In the voice world, we say voice first, meaning, is voice first the best option? So when you're creating chatbots and voice skills, if what you're creating is not more efficient than what you already have, then it's not the right answer for the problem you're trying to solve. And that's something that's really important to understand and take in. So I want to give some examples here of where it could be more efficient and where it would not. If, for example, we have that marketing sales component, right? So let's say I go to a website, I want to find out their services. I have to kind of look on the website. I have to scroll down and click. I maybe find a couple of different resources, and then I've got to fill out a form to contact someone. Let's say that takes 5 minutes. Well, what if I had a chatbot that did that, right? So somebody goes to the website, it pops up, it says, how can I help you? There are 3 or 4 services you create. Someone clicks on one of those buttons, and then the next thing that happens is it either goes to the direct information that they need on the site, and or it says, great, do you want someone from our team to contact you about this? They say yes, they put in their information, that goes directly to your sales team, And now that maybe took 2 minutes, right? That is a more efficient way and a potential better option to be designing a chatbot for something. Now, on a voice skill side, let's say you have a company that has recipes on your website. Okay. People have to go to the website. They have to look it up. If they're cooking something, they're going to have to look on their phone or their computer. And it's not really the best experience. When you're cooking, you have stuff on your hands and you're moving around and you might forget something. You've got to turn your phone back and on. So a more efficient way might be to create a voice skill or app that has your recipes where the person can interact. They can ask questions. What is the next step in the recipe? Or can you repeat that? Now I've created a more efficient and better user experience because now it's cleaner. They don't have to use their hands. They can talk while they're moving and cooking. And so that's the potential for a more efficient option. I want to give you a personal example of one that wasn't and kind of how we fixed it. So I have a podcast and I wanted to create a voice skill for it. And the team I was working with, the first thing they said to me was, well, we'll just create a voice skill that lets people play your podcast. And I said to them, well, that's not helping anyone. That's not efficient. People are already listening to it on their phone. Why would I make them go to another device, learn it, set something up to do exactly what they're doing already? So that would not be a great option as the only option to have for a voice skill. But what I did say was I have over 500 pieces of content. And one of the challenging things is for people to find what they need. They have to currently scroll through. So we created a voice skill where once you launch it, you go in and you can ask things like, play me an inspirational episode. Play me an inspirational episode about a female entrepreneur. It will come back with what I have in my podcast, right? That's a better user experience. So if somebody's listening to the podcast, now they can find what they want. Now, I started small, right? I went through this strategy. We only right now have 3 things that you can ask it: inspiration, mindset, or tip. That's how I've separated kind of in a big way. Eventually, I want it to be very specific, but I'm testing it first. I'm starting small, and that's really important as well. So again, is the process that you want to do with a chatbot or voice more efficient than the way people are getting information now? If yes, continue exploring that. If no, stop right there. You don't need a chatbot or voice for that particular thing. And then third, we want to think about, how do I measure success? Every single company I've talked to when they are considering chatbots or voice, especially because they're still on the newer side, is what's the ROI? What are the KPIs, right? Unless you're a company that has an R&D, a research and development division where they have funding to be able to play and have fun and test, that's great. But a lot of them don't have it. So you have to go back and say, what is the ROI? What is the KPI of this? So if I'm looking at a customer service chatbot or voice skill, for example, one of the problems may be we're getting in 200 calls a day. With our current team, we are only able to service 50 of them. Well, that's a problem. Go through this whole process. What are the top 3 questions asked? How can we make it more efficient? How can I measure it? Well, okay, if I have a chatbot or voice skill that's answering some of the more basic questions I don't need a human being to answer, now maybe I'm having 150 that I'm servicing. What is the number that I want to be servicing, right? If I'm a marketing or sales team, if I keep repeating myself with the same questions and I don't have time to do that, how could I create a chatbot or voice skill that answers those questions and sends me a lead faster, right? So we really want to sit down and say, what am I measuring? What is kind of the point of this as I'm going through? Next slide for our final slide here. Thank you so much. So what I want to encourage you today is to be thinking more human, to slow down, to focus on the strategy here of who you are and who you're trying to serve, and to start small. I always say crawl before you can walk, right? So many people want to create this really robust chatbot or voice skill the first time out. They spend so much time and money and energy, and then it doesn't do well. People don't like it and they don't want to use it. And that's wasted resources and time, not to mention your own, how you're feeling about it. So when you take the time to do this, you want to start small. How can I do something very simply that's helpful? then you're going to put it out and you're going to market it. That's another big thing we don't talk about enough in the technology space. Just because you're in technology doesn't mean that other people fully understand how the tech works. So it's important to spend time and money marketing it, to teach people to use it, just like you did with websites, just like you did with social media. It's the same. So once you market it, then you have to test it. Test it for a few months. When you're going through and you, on the chatbot side, where are people dropping off? Try to figure out, why are they dropping off? Maybe I'm not asking the right question. Maybe I'm not answering fast enough. Maybe my brand voice is off. In a voice skill, you want to look and see, okay, what's working, what's not? What are they asking that I'm not answering? And you can look at all of the platforms that you use. You can look on the back end to see what people are asking. Some of it, of course, is going to be spam and things you don't care about. But if people are asking, if you have 10 people asking the same question, you don't have an answer, how can you fix that, improve that? So really, again, think more human, start small, crawl before you can walk, put it out, market it, test it, improve it, and then do it again. It's a process you go through over and over again. And I'm always available for questions. If you go on Twitter or LinkedIn, I'm at Kerry N. Roberts, KerinRoberts. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you're interested in working with me, happy to chat about that as well. But I want to encourage you that this is a really exciting space. You don't have to feel the pressure to be doing it so fast. Really slow down, take this time. I mean, this can take a day. It can take a couple weeks. We're not talking about years. We don't want to overthink something, but it's important to think about, who is your brand? Who are you trying to serve? And I just want to share some feedback here. Mohammed says customers should hear what they need to hear from a voice or chatbot. Yes. It's about the user, right? It's not just about the technology. And then Amar says, how to keep the customer patient and less frustrated when that happens. Yeah, really important to do that too. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And again, feel free to reach out with questions.
Yeah, in fact, are there any questions on the questions tab, Kerry? Could you just take a look?
Yeah, I just kind of read them off. I just saw, the last one. Yeah, how to keep the customer patient and less frustrated when that happens. I think in the moment, once you've put out these chatbots or voice, you can't fix it at that moment, right? But it's really going back and seeing, once you've gone back, where did that person get frustrated, right? Did they keep asking the same question 4 times and your voice skill wasn't able to answer it? Well, you can fix that the next time. So you're not going to be able to fix it in the moment because it's an AI, but you can fix it when you go back after the testing.
I have a couple of questions, Kerry, if you don't mind. You briefly mentioned your podcast during your presentation. Perhaps could you tell us a little bit more about that podcast and, what's it called? Where can we find it? So how frequently do you publish, audio content?
Yeah. So my personal podcast is Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things. I do a couple other podcasts for clients as well, but that is my personal one. And the skill with it is called Extraordinary Mindset. So if you open Google Assistant or Amazon Alexa and say open Extraordinary Mindset, you can experience it there. Again, it's in its first version. So I'm always welcome to feedback. I'm certainly not a pro. I don't think anyone is a pro in this space quite yet. But you can kind of see what I'm talking about in the testing as well.
How frequently do you publish audio content on your podcast?
So I do it 3 times a week. It publishes, I'm in the US in New Jersey. It publishes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So like I said, we have over 500 pieces of content. And then I also do live video interviews as well on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So it's been an amazing experience. I think podcasting is not talked about enough when it comes to voice. It's a great segue into using a voice skill and a great way to build content and relationships as well.
Right. And when it comes to branding, we've been talking a lot about building brands all throughout the day. But what should organizations and firms do when a PR disaster happens? Something terribly wrong happens, or some scammers occurred. What can a company do to rectify the damage?
Yeah, so if you're talking about scammers, you want to maybe look at your security component, which is definitely not my personal area of expertise. So you want to make sure that you have a good security team, either external or internal, when you're working with any technology, of course. When you're looking at PR, I think the big thing is, again, you really want to think more human, right? If you were a person and you got in an argument or you said something offensive or did something wrong, make that apology. Make that apology and say, look, hey, we recognize that we did this wrong. You're right. We're going to fix this, and this is how. So that's really big. I mean, especially, I'm sure worldwide, but especially in the US, we had a lot with Black Lives Matter, a lot with our presidential election, a lot of companies that really ruined their brand because of the things they said and the things they didn't say. So you really have to choose where you stand, stick with it. And if you do something that was off brand, which usually is not intentionally, apologize, make a statement about it and how you're going to fix it.
So that's all the questions from my side. Thank you very much, Carrie, for being with us. In fact, you were with us the last time as well, and we are very happy to have you. We're very happy to have you for the Voice Tech Summit Middle East as well. And we look forward to staying in touch. If any of our viewers would like to get in touch with Carrie one-on-one, she is, of course, available backstage in the VIP area and the reception area. And she'll be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Yes, thank you so much for everyone watching and participating. And I thank the Voice Tech Summit for asking me to be a part of this. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Cheers, Carrie. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Right, so we're going to get into a short networking break for 5 minutes, and when we come back, the next discussion will be privacy in conversational AI, specifically the Middle East privacy laws, why it's necessary to have this privacy, and how we can incorporate privacy in chat box. All of this and much more after this very short 5 minutes.